We present Tales from Kai Tak. On the
think.
6th of July, one of the most challenging airports in the world closes. In this program, we'll talk to the airmen who've made it their profession to fly you safely in and out of Hong Kong's Kai Tak International Airport. We'll take you up front onto the flight deck for 3 landings at Kai Tak. A routine landing with British Airways, a simulator training emergency with Northwest, and a real trip round a thunderstorm and hailstones on Cathay Pacific. Tales from Kai Tak.
Every day you go to work, you take off and quite often come back and land in one of the most demanding airports in the world. The satisfaction of doing it well is incredible. Great job satisfaction to use all your skills, your experience, and bring a 747 or a large heavy aircraft into land at what is described as one of the most demanding in the world.
My name is Tom Erickson. I've been with Northwest Airlines for 32 years. I'm presently a captain on the 747-400. Hong Kong, we kind of weave our way through the mountains there. Rather than going straight at the runway, we come at it at an angle, and then the last half, 3/4 of a mile, we make a right-hand turn, turning to the right and landing on the runway. So it's flying almost a little bit reminiscent of back in my Air Force days and flying fighters, or that type of airplane where you had a more of an aggressive approach landing to the runway.
My name is Chip Crosby. I'm a captain for UPS. I started flying into Hong Kong in the DC-8s originally, and I'm currently flying captain on 747. The approach starts out in a fairly conventional manner as you join onto the instrument guidance system, which is really very much like an instrument landing system in that it has a left-right course guidance and it has a vertical up-down glide slope guidance. You really stick with that until you're in fairly close. From that point on, that's the difference between a regular approach and Hong Kong, because at that point, down at about a little less than 600 feet above ground, you're required to perform a 47-degree right turn to line up on final. That turn actually doesn't really commence until maybe 500 to 400 feet above ground. And ground, in this case, is an extremely heavily built up, populated area underneath you with all kinds of lights and everything. And during the course of this turn, you're down to just 300 feet, depending on where you get the airplane rolled out wings level. Sometimes you're not wings level until you're almost inside the airport property. The sensation on that approach at night in weather is really quite interesting. As you get close to minimums on the approach, the cockpit starts lighting up with a very eerie orange glow as you fly over the Kowloon Peninsula from all the street lights and everything down below you, which almost, to me, gives you sort of a feeling like you're getting dangerously close to the ground. Sort of a creepy feeling, in fact. And then breaking out of that approach and trying to make the turnaround to that runway in low visibility is very challenging indeed.
Barry Schiff, I've been with TWA for 34 years. Everybody wants to do a beautiful job going into Kai Tak. It was such a challenge to do it, and the adrenaline was flowing, so it made you more alert to the problems there than perhaps at other airports that were less challenging. You'd fly over the Chung Chau Beacon, low over the South China Sea, and over the windswept waters, and sometimes monsoon or typhoon rain, I should say, heading for a radio beacon, at which point you'd then head toward a shallow hill at very low altitude. And the idea was to fly as close to that hill as possible without turning away. And when your co-pilot began to wince and get nervous, that was the time to turn. And you turned sharply toward the runway and you'd land. And the checkerboards were very effective, perhaps even better than radio aids or sophisticated electronics, because you couldn't miss them.
I'm Nick Bristow. I'm a captain with British Airways on this 747-400 BA27, London to Hong Kong. You really only get one stab at Hong Kong, and when you go round that corner, if you don't line it up correctly, you can get yourself into trouble. It's one of the few airfields that we operate into with this aeroplane where you don't have an opportunity to do an auto-land. It's very much a hands-on landing, and the conditions can vary so much. The trip that we're on right now, we'll probably do a limits letdown prior to seeing the runway, it just puts your skill to the limit. It's quite unique in terms of the requirements that you need to get into Hong Kong. It's not somewhere where you could really go in without very much experience.
You fly low over these concrete canyons and these high-rise buildings, and you feel as though they're probing for your belly. And when the winds are swirly and turbulent and blowing through these concrete canyons, the turbulence can be very difficult. So it kept you on your toes.
Simulator is capable of having every emergency up until including actual crash. It makes all the proper noises. It's on a hydraulic system which moves the simulator around, which gives the pilot to see what the planes feel. I think it's very realistic. People that
500
that I've observed on their first time into Hong Kong using that runway have absolutely
400.
It's practically identical.
300.
Vietnam 790.
Think rate. Minimums. Minimums.
790, roger, contact 118.7.
100.
Call fair 150, turn right heading 045, clear digest approach, report established.
4,500 and we have to turn right, Kelly 742.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
The problems we had this evening was that the weather to the west of the airfield was extremely bad, extremely big thunderstorms, which meant that we had to shorten the approach. When we got below the cloud, around 1,500 feet, the panorama opens up where you've got Hong Kong Island to the right, Kowloon Peninsula in front of you. But obviously it was raining rather hard this evening, so visibility is still limited. And when we make the visual turn from the decision altitude, well, we've got to make the decision, are we visual or not, can we land on the runway or not, we need all the visual clues we can get. There's a purely visual, manual, seat of the pants, right turn, some 48 degrees at very low level, 500-600 feet. And that requires good visibility, and rain is one of our biggest problems here. Wind coming from the north through to the east, and then as we completed the turn, lined up at the runway, it went to southeasterly direction, and once again, just in the last couple hundred feet, gave him a crosswind of some 15 knots. All those changes require thrust changes, bank angle changes, pitch attitude changes. It's all happening. It's basically done without thought. It's not conscious thought. It's a bit like driving a car. You don't say, I'm going to turn this corner. It just seems to happen. And the same with pilots. But it does take a lot of experience, a lot of skill, and really, this is the place to get back to basics.
For me, it's one of the last of the really sort of neat airports to fly into with a big airplane.
Nowhere in the world is there an airport like this, particularly an airport of this size. So it is a very unique place, and I think the people, the business people just across the road in Kowloon City will miss the airport as much as the airport people will miss Kowloon City.